we actually have partnered with Universal College Lanka for this webinar. So big thank you to Universal College Lanka, and we have a short video that we need to share before we start. So just please bear with us for like 2 minutes.
Sure.
No worries. I'm going to mute myself.
Because the struggle is real. Because the hustle keeps you up. Because the passion keeps you going. With the partnership between Monash College and UCL, now a premier education isn't just a pipe dream. You can now choose what you want to study and where you want to be in life. Call us now.
What I would say about UCL is that all partners care about the academic experience, and that is very, very strong at UCL.
So yeah, so without further ado, I think I'll just hand over the reins to Shanuki. Everyone knows Shanuki. I don't think I need to really introduce her much. She's become.
Oh,
like...
but you should. Yeah, you should.
Okay, I will then. I will do my best. So Shanuki, I think everyone knows because she's the co-founder and host of the talk show, and she's also very involved in a lot of activities. And I think just from webinars, you've seen her at least once a week since quarantine started, I'm sure. So she's also a very passionate volunteer and activist, and she was even shortlisted for the IVHQ volunteer scholarships last year. So without further ado, Shanuki, you can go ahead.
Thank you. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this webinar of Weathering the Storm. Thank you very much to Chokolaate for involving all of us. I have three amazing panelists here who have been keeping this very same conversation going for quite some time, and they are like massive voices in this space of emotional wellness and taking care of yourself. So we have the ladies first. We have Natali Devinka, who is a filmmaker and an artist, and that Natali has been using her personal experiences with mental health to advocate for the cause and to really help society kind of come out of a lot of issues that we've had. We have Sharon, who is like nobody, I think, in the, at least, I don't think there's a single teenager in Sri Lanka who doesn't know Sharon, right? For various reasons, he's out there. And Sharon is using his voice and his social media presence to, you know, connect and lift people up. And he's using his own personal experiences as well. He's been on the TED stage and he's become quite the activist. I don't know whether it's on purpose or not, but he's really become a representative of the cause. And of course, my pal Nivendra Uduman, counseling psychologist who's walked around Sri Lanka to raise awareness for mental health and now speaks around Sri Lanka and trains people on training people. You know, and really, he's one of the few people, I would say, he's one of the few guys out there who speaks for women's rights and who advocates for a lot of things that really matter to us as a society and to our personal wellness. So he's probably one of the few people I know who knows more about how we function than we know. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're here to talk about weathering the storm. And I'm really happy to do this because it's Mental Health Awareness Month, the month of May. So it's right to do this topic right now. Also the fact that this pandemic situation, everybody knows what's going on with it. Everybody knows what's going on with us in our homes. There's so much crap that we are experiencing either personally, within our families, within our communities, or in our country. So mental wellness has become kind of the thing that we need to be talking about and need to be aware of. I'm just so happy that this subject has been talked about as much as it has lately, especially by people like the panelists on this webinar today, like the Sharons and the Natalis and the Nivendras, who are out there using their voices, constantly speaking about it, so much so that the topic has become almost a normal thing to talk about, which is great because we want this subject to have some normalcy. We want people to stop treating it like such a taboo that we don't understand anymore. So it's fantastic that, you know, Chokolaate is also giving us the opportunity to explore what it is about And of course, those of you out there who are watching this, I'm assuming you are, and if you're not, you should be readers of the magazine, and you are a youth community, and you are the community that is going to take this country and this world forward. So it's so important for us all to be open and aware about these things, what makes us tick as human beings, and how do we help each other tick better. Okay, so enough from me. I'm just going to moderate this conversation, and we're going to start with the mental health practitioner in the group. I'm going to pose the first question. Yeah, Natalie's like, she was hoping that it wouldn't be her. She was hoping that I wouldn't say. Usually the polite thing would be to say ladies first, but I think it's good to have the professional first.
Of course, yes.
Just to set things in context, Nivendra, because we're talking about coping. Weathering storms is about coping through crisis, right? Can you talk us through what is it that happens to us in crisis mode, which is natural to everybody? Nobody is a superhero or a superhuman here, right? So what exactly happens to us that we cannot cope in crisis? Why do we struggle with this? And why is it important that we know what to do with it?
Okay. First of all, thank you so much, Chokolaate, for inviting me to be a part of this panel. I think I'm grateful to be with 3 other fantastic human beings that I've come to know recently. So to start off, I think this whole experience of COVID-19 and being under curfew and all of that in Sri Lanka, it has caused people a range of different experiences they have to go through and different emotions, right? So again, it's not one thing that you can fit into everyone's experience, but everyone's experience would be very different, and everyone would be responding to this crisis very differently, right? Even though we hear stories and we hear these common emotions of frustration, of anger, of sadness, of anxiety being spoken about a lot, we also have to acknowledge that some people might be also feeling happiness, might be also feeling joy, might also be feeling gratitude. So it's a mixed bag of a lot of things, right? So in this instance, there is no one way that you're supposed to feel. I think I need to make that clear. There's no one way you're supposed to feel as a human being, because this was something we are unprepared for. We were not prepared for this sort of a crisis, even though we've weathered really heavy storms in the past in Sri Lanka. But this particular storm is a very unique, very new, and something that we are still learning about, right? Even though it's been more than a month now. So when someone is in crisis mode, or when someone is going through this threat mode that we've been in for a while now, there's a huge physiological, biological kind of a response that happens in our bodies, to all of us. I think all of us are experiencing that, right? So we call this either the threat mode, or we call this fight or flight mode that a lot of us have been in for a while now, right? Where either we are kind of fighting this, or fighting to gain control of stuff that we think we have lost control over, or we are kind of distancing ourselves, we are running, we are trying to escape using different mediums. So this will change from person to person, right? And then with the fight and flight response, there comes the freeze response, where we get into this state of being immobile, of being not so functional, right? Not being able to sometimes do the daily things that we normally would do, because we go into this state of freeze, right? Where it's come to a point where it's too much to cope with. So the brain has its own mechanism to protect us by shutting down after a certain period. So it again happens to all of us, right? So I think all of us are in different phases of this fight, flight, freeze response, right? And so if you look at biology, if you look at what's happening in the body, I think even though we haven't been running around or doing things, we've still been under a lot of stress, right? A lot of anxiety. So we've had hormones, what we call our stress hormones, adrenaline and cortisol, being secreted a lot these days, especially cortisol, because cortisol is one of those things that tends to cause a lot of physiological reactions for us when we are stressed, when we're anxious. So a lot of people will notice their They might be sweating excessively. Other people might be trembling. Some people nausea. Other people might be experiencing gastritis, stomach problems, right? Muscle tension, so a lot of pain and stiffness around the shoulder, the back of the neck, your back, other joints, right, like your elbows and knees. So this is all, a lot of this has to do with, that's this stress response that we're talking about, where we are constantly in this fight or flight mode, where our bodies are automatically preparing us to either fight or to run. So the blood flow in our body is getting sent a lot to the extremities, right? Even though there's no actual danger, even though there's no real threat in front of us, even when we are at home, still watching the news, hearing stories, getting SMS alerts, getting WhatsApp alerts, all of that will also trigger this fight or flight response that we have. So it doesn't have to be that we are directly at risk of contracting COVID-19 or a family member contracting COVID-19, but just seeing these stories every day repetitively where we are exposed to distress on social media, on the news, will keep us in the stress mode, right? So generally, when we talk about managing stress, when we talk about how human beings regulate their emotions at a time like this, we operate on 3 different modes, right? So one mode is called the drive mode, where we use this sense of doing things, of achieving things, of being really task oriented to regulate our emotions. So the more we do, the more we get done, the more to-do lists that we check off during these days, we feel good. That's one way of regulating and coping with our emotions. Other people use what we call being in threat mode, right? So constantly looking for threat, constantly analyzing danger, constantly analyzing risk, and continuously doing things to prepare yourself to face those potential risks or threats. So for example, we saw in the early days of this crisis, people were stocking up on sanitizer and toilet paper and etc. Shanuki, you remember when you and I went to stores to look for stuff?
We went to, I think we went to some of the Satasa shops because we were doing some community crisis response, and we were literally standing in that queue for about 3 hours, like just to check stuff out because there's so much of a crowd.
Yeah, so a lot of people were operating on this threat mode where they were just trying to somehow manage that feeling of anxiety or threat by trying to be as safe as possible. And even now we find some people doing that, right? Then the other mode that we can use to manage our stress and to regulate our emotions is what we call the safe zone or the soothing zone, right? So this is something, even though we ideally should be doing a lot of that, we don't really do a lot of that. So we operate more on the drive mode and the threat mode rather than the soothe mode. So in soothing, it is about getting rest, it's about digesting, it's about just soothing yourself and allowing other people to soothe you as well, right? So that's just a background. So a lot of the things we are feeling, right, would be operating in these 3 modes, where either we'll be really anxious, feel really threatened, right? Or we might be feeling very driven, wanting to do things, wanting to be in control of things we really can't control also at a time like this, right? So yeah, it's very natural for people to feel frustrated, to feel anxious, to angry. And I think a lot of people are also having grief reactions, Shanuki, where things that they have lost as a part of this crisis, or their identities that might have changed as a result of this crisis, roles at home that might have changed, gender roles that might have changed because of this crisis. All of these things also leaves this grief reaction that we are going through, even though, again, it's not this typical loss that we are conditioned to think about when we think about grief, but this is also a loss because we've lost our social rhythm, we've lost the general routine that we were used to, we've lost communication with some people that we were close to. So, and also these are ways of seeking help when we are going through difficulties also has changed, because the usual mediums that we might have had available before curfew might not be available to us now. For example, a lot of people rely on religious practices and spiritual practices. So for some people, that might not be available at a time like this. Other people might have been seeing therapists or counselors, so that might not be readily available, or a doctor might not be readily available. So a lot of people have had to adapt to find new ways of coping, Shanuki, which normally would be difficult for some people to adapt to. So yeah, there's a whole variety of things, and I always use this analogy of the fingerprint, right? Where I say that all human beings have a fingerprint, but every fingerprint is unique. That's why they use it for identity. So just like that, we might be all going through the same crisis, but our experience will be very, very unique from person to person. So what I really want to tell people who are participating in this webinar today is that there is nothing abnormal about what you're feeling right now, right? There's nothing that you need to think, oh my God, am I mentally ill? Or is this something really different what I'm feeling right now? But whatever you're feeling is valid, right? It's acknowledged, and you're allowed to feel what you want to feel. Okay, so there is no strict regulations about what you're supposed to feel or what you're not supposed to feel. Yeah, so I think coping, again, we are using different things. Some people use, for example, they would use control as a form of coping. So having everything in order, in control, making sure you're analyzing every risk, taking precautions for every risk. So that might be their way of coping, whereas other people would just completely collapse, shut down, withdrawing to themselves. That's another way of coping. So again, coping, there are certain things to do during this period, but also in general life, which we can talk about as we go along.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Naves. Thanks. That was quite a lot. But end of the day, it's kind of, I'd say the takeout is that whatever is happening with you, whether it's frustration through boredom or stress or anxiety or whatever it is that you're going through, it's completely normal. And it's your human reaction. And he's just told you about what that reaction is and what's going on with the brain chemicals and stuff. So I'm going to move to Natalie now. Because I think one of the first things that we need to do is that we need to know that when we identify that we are going through stress or depression or whatever it is, and it can be even anxiety if you have elderly people at home, or you have people who are already ill at home and everybody is kind of on eggshells and on pins because, you're scared to even go out to the hospital because you're scared you contract something else, and you have immunocompromised and vulnerable people at home, which can be a big stress factor for the whole family. So things like that can really, really make you worry and all that. And I think one of the first things that we need to do is, before we are there for everyone else, that we also learn to take care of ourselves, because we know that, all this stuff is going out. So one of the ways that I think everybody is using a lot of social media for this is using their creativity, right? And especially young people, we have a lot of creative outlets out there, and everybody's talking about how important it is to keep your mind stimulated and stuff like that and be creative. I mean, I'm a 40-year-old auntie who just got onto TikTok like 3 days ago. Okay, that's what my life is reduced to. I'm on TikTok now just because I need something new and different to do. After 2 months, yeah, that's what it's come to. But Natalie, can you tell me, because you are somebody who uses creativity for mental health coping and, for creative expression, but also for your wellness. Can you just talk about the importance of it and what people can do using creativity and how creativity actually just improves your condition when you weather a storm?
Okay, thank you so much for having me. I think I'm having more anxiety than I did during this 1.5 months. But Shanuki, I think creativity, whether it's painting, filmmaking, whether you're composing music, whatever it is, that has always been my coping mechanism ever since I was a kid. Because I think I've been going through this since I was 7 years old. Quarantining, this isolation period has not made much of a difference to me, because I'm someone who actually spends a lot of time at home. I love staying at home. So for someone like me, I think ever since I was a kid, one of the main coping mechanisms that I've used is painting. because I spent a very large amount of time. I didn't realize this up until recently. It's form of a meditation, because you're focusing. Because usually when I'm idle, when I'm not doing anything, my mind is racing all the time. I'm thinking of a lot of things because I have that space to think about so many things. It's not like I'm voluntarily thinking about it, but it's involuntary. You keep getting these thoughts, and most of it is negative. And you have I usually don't want to preach what I can't practice. Something that I'm still trying to do is to kind of control these thoughts. But in the meantime, I think I've also sort of, I let them come and I let them go. I don't try to control these thoughts anymore. Before I forget, I think one thing other than your expressing yourself, expressing your emotions through creativity, and another thing that can help you generally, not only through such tough times, but also on a daily basis, something that can really help you is acceptance. You need to accept it. For me, I think that has been my turning point. Like for most of my time, most of my life, I've been trying to question, why do I feel this way? Why am I anxious all the time? Why do I have these thoughts? Because for me, being kind, that has been so important. But I feel like, on the other hand, a different person was growing inside me, where I felt more violent, more angry, rage, and it was really hard for me to control. And I kind of let that control me. Hence, it resulted in suicide attempts so many a times. So number one, before any of that, I think acceptance, like you said, it's only normal for us to respond to certain situations like this. It could be, also in situations like this, when you have nothing to do, past traumatic incidents, a lot of things come flushing in. It has been happening to me as well during this month. I actually shifted to my parents' house temporarily, because me and my husband, we didn't want to be there by ourselves, because I know it's going to go out of hand. So I'm surrounded by family, but there are those who are not surrounded by family. There are those who live alone. There are those who are surrounded by abusive family members, partners. So for those, I think might be so much harder. And that has been bothering me so much as well. The thought of that, there are people who literally have no one. So for people like that, I think expressing what they feel through creative elements such as painting, music, whatever it is, one thing you need to remember is that you don't have to be perfect at it. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to draw a masterpiece. You don't have to paint a masterpiece. You don't have to create a music that's gonna, it's nothing about, reaching that perfection, or getting
an art
so
is
many.
Subjective, right? It's your personal expression, detoxing your system in the form of art.
Exactly. Before, though, I thought it was really important to be perfect, and I spent a lot of time trying to perfect whatever I painted, and it really got to me. And then later on, I realized it's not about being perfect, but it's about expressing what you feel at the time. And it really works, because you're 100% focused on what you do. So for me, I listen to a lot of classical music, which has really helped me immensely. That again, when you listen to music as such, your mind is taken into, in my case though, it takes me into different dimensions, where I start imagining things, and that has helped me kind of divert all that energy to filmmaking, because that has helped me a lot. And also, I think humor, I think I have been laughing so much during this past 1.5 months, trying to indulge in that humor. I think when you kind of suffer from it, you kind of get the license to laugh at it as well. So I've been, I think, laughing at whatever I feel. Speaking out, I think something that I've not done, but I think I've been telling everyone how I feel then and there, which has really helped me so much. Back then, I thought, oh my God, this is not going to work. If I tell them how I feel, they probably freak out. But now they've given me nicknames like Ted Bundy and things like that. But it has been easy for me, like, telling them how I feel, just being open about it. So yeah, apart from, trying to express your emotions, express your thoughts through other creative elements, something you can also try to work out is just, speaking out. And acceptance, humor, those are a lot of things that has helped me for so many years. And I think finally I'm at a place where I'm not going to say that I'm 100% okay, but I'm at a place where I can comfortably breathe in all that chaos.
Thanks, Natalia, and more power to you actually to sort of through demonstration. You're showing people that you can overcome, and sometimes you might have your highs and as well as your lows, but you can still, overcome. And tomorrow is a new day, and how you use yourself to express, sort of how you use your expressionism.
Yeah,
to,
actually, I think you shouldn't give so much importance to overcoming it 100%, because there could be good days, then it could get really bad, it could get worse, but it could get to better. So let's not focus on recovering 100%, but rather focus on being in a space where you're comfortable to breathe. I think that's what's important.
Because that's what the webinar is all about. It's weathering that storm. It's surviving the storm. It's not ending the storm. Storms will come. Storms are things beyond your control, right?
Yeah.
And I think I read today, this morning, actually, there was a psychologist who does like this series of TED Talks on taking care of yourself, where she says it's those who practice self-compassion first who are able to stand up after they fall, because you have to take care of yourself. You have to be your number one priority before you can share yourself with the world. But as you said, Natali, sometimes, this sense of isolation is something that I think a lot of people will feel, whether or not they are surrounded by family at home. Sometimes you might be in a home where you're not particularly close to your family, so you don't have anyone to talk to. Then sometimes you can be living on your own. I'm living on my own. I have 8 dogs that I talk to, and they all think I'm mad. But and I know Sharon is out there on his own. But then Sharon, this whole thing about we are human beings, we all have a need to belong, and we are all connected in some way. We need that connection to keep us going, right? And when we are at our lowest and our darkest, we need that sense of somebody's there to support us. And I think you've been doing that, Sharon, in a big way, using yourself as a catalyst or a platform for people to connect. Right. Can you just take us through what you've been doing to spread the positivity and to keep spirits up during this whole COVID chaos?
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for having me firstly. And just a quick disclaimer, just in case, I know everyone has voluntarily chosen to come here, but if anything triggers you, feel free to leave the chat. We don't want anyone to go through anything that they shouldn't. But yes, I'm alone. I'm in Melbourne. I'm freezing so hard right now because the balcony is the only place I can talk to you guys, because I have 2 roommates as well and I don't want to be rude. But yeah, it's been tough. I won't lie. I lost 3 jobs in 2 days, so I can relate to what Nivendra said of a feeling of grief. 2019 was a whole journey of self-awareness, self-reflection. I set up so many things. I got amazing opportunities to do workshops, facilitate workshops, do public speaking such as TEDx, everything because I put myself out there. And now I'm suddenly back inside. And I've been going for therapy for close to 2 years now. And I think the biggest thing for me is I've been feeling trapped. And when all the news started coming out, I was just like, oh my God, what is going on? And I just started feeling anxious. And to answer your question, this is where I was just like, okay, I've been talking about mental health for the past close to 2 years now. This is where I need to stand up and do something and use myself as a conduit, because I believe that I only have the right to speak about my own experiences. I have no right to speak about anyone else's. So I was just like, I'm going to use my own experiences, get people on shows, talk about taboo topics, talk about their own experiences, stuff that they would normally not talk about in an interview, especially in Sri Lanka. So I was just like, this is the opportunity to do that. And what's the point of having a social media platform if you don't use that for something good? And then I did that. But the thing is, I also have to acknowledge, just like you guys have been talking about, like, self-compassion is so important. I have a single mom. I've told Shanuki this. I think Natalia also knows. She's gone through domestic abuse. She's a survivor, but she's the most annoyingly positive person I know in my life. But the thing is, what she used to do was pour from an empty cup. She would take care of everyone else except for herself. And I mimic this. I ignored all of the things that I'd gone through in my childhood. I ignored all of those things, just buried, kept taking care of everyone around me. And then it came to a point I just imploded. And I was just like, what is going on? I was so confused. And the most important thing for me is when I made that statement on my Instagram bio, which is, take it to the weight that it is. It's just a bio, but I said that I'm the most positive profile on Instagram. But why I'm saying that is also because, yes, positivity is important, but you have to also acknowledge all the bad things in life as well. Acceptance is the first step towards recovery. Really accept like evil Sharon in my head. Because I had a chat with my therapist just 3 days ago, and I had a relapse last week, so I spoke to her about it and how I felt, and she was just like, okay, you are trapped right now, both physically, because you're in a very you're not in a comfortable environment because you're always out there doing things, but you're also trapped emotionally and mentally. And this is really affecting your mental health right now. So identifying, accepting, all of those things are very important to get through this. And like you said, community. If we don't build an ecosystem of us helping each other out, we are going to break one day. I do not believe in people who say, I want you to win, but not more than me. So like that kind of environment is not on. I do not believe in that. I believe in building an ecosystem and a community of building each other up. If for example, like the talk show like starts making crazy income and you guys like ramp up to production levels and you guys have amazing guests and I'm just saying, like if I can help like just this like 0.0001% of doing that, just to make sure that we build a better ecosystem, how awesome would that be? It's just about putting yourself first, yes, but like you should also think about the bigger cause. You're putting yourself first so that you're stronger to be stronger for other people as well, and keep spreading that message. So self-care is super important. That's why, for example, I've stopped the live shows for now, because it came to, and it's very important to acknowledge the fine line between is it helping you or is it an obligation? It's been one hell of a ride. I've lost jobs. University has been hell, but I'm pushing on as much as I can. For me right now, what I tell myself is less productivity is better than no productivity. And Nivendra, like you mentioned, you said that some people do tasks, and that was me in 2019. But now, since I'm trapped, I've gone back to who I was before, where I'm just playing it safe, and I'm just like, I just want to survive through this. Mute all the stories that have news about all these things, and just get through it and just keep building a community and a better ecosystem. That's all I want to do. I'm sorry for the long rant, but I hope that answers your question.
No, thank you for the rant, and thank you for sharing, Sharon. Hang in there. I don't have a job right now, so lots of labels, but no income and no job. So I get you, and I get the sort of the anxiety around it. I just want to turn this into now a personal discussion. We have a few more minutes. I'd like to just keep talking, and maybe the final 10 minutes we'll open it up to any questions from any viewers out there. But I want to make this personal now. Sharon, you've all kind of given us your personal experiences, except for Nivendra, who's come like from this whole professional point. I'm going to put you on the spot now. I just want to say, taking from how we are individually coping, I think it also matters, apart from all the expertise and the knowledge that we have to share, just to acknowledge that we are also human, and as much as we are advocates for mental health, doesn't mean that we are also okay all the time. It's easier said than done to practice what you preach. And I think, Sharon, you're a living embodiment of that, and good on you for saying these are my limits, and this is what I have experienced. I just want to sort of focus on something that you said twice, is that you felt trapped, and I get why you feel that, and I think a lot of people weathering this particular storm these days, and any storm in their life really, we have that sense of there's no way out, because that's what happens when darkness seeps in. It's so overwhelming that your mind just doesn't allow you to see solutions, which is where you need help, which is where you need like a detached point of view, like your therapist, who will see it from an outside perspective, and then possibly open your mind to the fact that you are not in fact trapped. You feel trapped, but you are not trapped. And there are doors and windows that your eyes are just not seeing right now. Nivendra, can you just I know that it's not easy for you also these days, because you being somebody who's in the space of helping people, and you and I have been a part of this community crisis team, and the minute this curfew came on board, we were not able to go out there and help. We were also shut down, and there was a lot of frustration. In a way, the thing that was helping us to stay sane, we didn't have, right? Because that was our outlet, and it is an outlet, like Sharon and like Natali said, to help each other out, lift each other up is a form of therapy for us also. So when you don't have that, you also feel trapped. What are you doing right now? Because you're supposed to be out there helping people, but you're not able to, and that can sort of really create a lot of anxiety. So personally, how are you dealing?
Okay, so I think when the curfew started, just after we finished doing those rounds of deliveries and getting all the ration packs back, I fell into a really bad slump for a few days. I was just completely in bed the whole day. I'm not going to lie. I was sleeping and sleeping and sleeping because I just couldn't function apart from watching Netflix and sleeping, right? But then after about 4 or 5 days went, and I just started to get used to this, accept my situation a little more than I did at the start, and started to swim, started to just move around the house a little bit. That's when my mood started to pick up again, right? And after that, I was able to get back to myself, where I was able to help other people online. I was seeing clients online. I was helping around the house a little bit. Before that, I was just getting really irritated and snappy, and I was completely not myself. So then I picked up, and I was going well until last week. There was a huge crisis that hit my life. And it completely broke me, it shattered me completely. I'm not going to lie, and I'm just going to be honest here. It's just completely got me down. So for the first time, I think in my life, I was having these spells of crying where it was just so primitive, and this sense of, this guttural kind of crying that I've never done before, which I was doing, and it was lasting for a long period of time. So that kind of got me going down this rabbit hole where I was isolating myself at home. So I had gone back to my other home with my mom, and I was isolating myself. I was crying. And then, like, I was in a place where I had never been before. So I was having thoughts of things like self-harm, and the first day I had these thoughts, I remembered one phrase that I heard in a course that I did recently online that said, when you're in pain, when you're feeling like those thoughts are going on in your mind, make eye contact and say, I need help, right? And that came to my head, and then I just got WhatsApp started and pressed the video call option to my girlfriend. And soon as she picked up, I just said, I need help. And I was just bawling, right? And then she spoke to me, and then she made sure that somehow she got the message to my parents. And then this process started where they were able to help me out, talk to me, care for me. So that day went by. And first time in my life I've had to take Valium to help me relax. I've never taken anything like that before, so it was really bad. So then I was okay. The next day I came back up. I was able to talk. The following day there was another trigger, and this time again I was isolated in my room, and the thoughts started to come again. These thoughts are very fleeting. They just come and they go. But when they came, it was really scary, because again, these are thoughts I'd never had before. And this time, actually, again, I mean, again, this might trigger certain people, so I'm just going to put a trigger warning here. I took a cut, those paper cutters that you use to cut paper. So I took one of those things into my hand, and I was like, this is not me. I have other ways of coping, but but these thoughts were going on in my mind, and I just threw it away after a while. And again, this time around, I called my friend and I called my girlfriend as well. And somehow there was intervention and I was able to get some help. So like I said, I might be a psychologist or whatever it is, but it's been a struggle, and sometimes we as psychologists or people in the mental health profession, we don't have people to talk to objectively because everyone else are people we work with. So you can't have like for me to find a therapist in Sri Lanka is next to impossible because there's no one I can see. So it's just been my parents and some of my very good friends who've been supporting me through this time. So I think I can talk from both sides, from being a professional and helping people help themselves, but also from the point of view where I've also really been having these struggles, but having really good days as well, where I've really done a lot. Now, after this incident, I think what Natali said before really connects, where creativity is something that can really help. So after I've been having these moments of crisis, I decided to myself, you know what, I'm just going to invest in myself again and do things that I have stopped doing. So I started singing lessons again, which I've not sung for ages. I used to sing a lot back in the day. So I started singing lessons with a person online. And it was really fun. It's not like I want to be a great singer, but just singing and, listening to other people sing, it gave me a lot of happiness. And now I have something to work towards, where I have to learn a new song for next week, So there is resilience going for me. That's how I build resilience. I will. Yeah, it's this Ed Sheeran song, and I don't listen to Ed Sheeran. And
I will hold you to that, Nivendra. The next time I speak to you, I'm going to ask for that song. Thanks a lot. From my point of view, also, thank you. That's amazing, Nivendra, because a lot of the time we forget that the caregivers, the mental health practitioners, and the experts are also human. And I think just by you sharing it validates the fact that all of us are also going through things. Sometimes we think we shouldn't be struggling. Look at the Nivendras of the world who have all the answers. Why can't we kind of... And we do a lot of, I think, whilst there is physical self-harm that happens in extreme cases of slumps, we do tend to beat ourselves up for not being able to weather storms, right? That we are not in control. And I know that happens to me a lot, and I'm not someone who opens up a lot about what's going on. And I do all these strange things on my social media. I'm singing, dancing, acting the fool and all of that. But there is definitely lots of times where I'm very, very down and I just don't want to get out of bed. And so I think all four of us are no strangers to the concept of thinking of self-harm. But for me, what's working, as much as I might sound like a self-help guidebook, is I've really consciously started forcing myself to, the first thing in the morning when I wake up is to think about things that I'm grateful for. And I make gratitude I heard this somewhere. It's not something that I came up with. I mean, I've heard it out there with The Secret and this and that, and I thought, what on earth? It's like white man's fantasies. But really, I found that does make the day a little more positive when you wake up and the first thing you allow yourself, you choose to think about is positivity, right? So you think about what you're grateful for. And just the fact that, you have the ability to see, hear, feel, and appreciate what's around you can create a positive mindset for the day. And then the last thing that I force myself to think of, and I write this down, I make it a point to write down so that it's kind of a challenge for myself, is to think of one thing that made me happy during that day. So you start with gratitude and you end with happiness, positivity, and that kind of before and after you sleep. I found that's kind of something to hold on to in a time where you feel like helpless and you feel like the world's against you and there's no solution, like Sharon said, trap. These are some things that can keep your mind focused on a little bit of niceness in all that darkness. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to move into questions that have come in. And I will let any of you, all of you or one of you or two of you can sort of answer this if you feel so. So the first question is, what are the signs to look out for if you feel a friend of yours is going through depression?
Shall I take it?
Yeah.
Okay. I think one of the first two things to look out for is, one thing is, if your friend seems like he or she has lost interest in things that they used to once enjoy and they used to once find pleasurable, or it was a part of their daily routine. If that has stopped, or if you find that they're not as enthusiastic about it now, you might want to just be concerned around that. And the second thing is, if you notice a loss of energy in this person who was once energetic or who was once going about their day-to-day life, if you're seeing a drop in energy, those two are the first kind of warning signs to look for in depression. And then you will find other things like if they are talking about finding it difficult to sleep, or sometimes even sleeping too much. It happens both ways. Some people don't sleep and other people sleep too much than they normally would do. And problems with appetite, right? Some people would not feel like eating, whereas other people would binge eat. So it happens both ways, right? And usually you find a lot of carb and sugar intake when there's depression going on. So if you're finding that a bit unusual for a friend, your alarm bells might, you might want to get them ringing at that time. Apart from that, you might find a lot of complaints about aches and pains, right, that are coming up. So a lot of people might say, my shoulders hurt all the time, my back of the neck hurts all the time, getting stomach issues, gastritis. A lot of people of constant headaches. So those are things to watch out for. Also, their movements becoming really slow and kind of, you sensing this sense of them being burdened in the way they move. Now, for me, in a couple of days, I went for a walk in the morning for exercise, and I noticed that my entire body was so heavy. I couldn't move my legs, right? I was forcing myself to move my legs, but I couldn't. So I knew that I had to go back home, right? So if you notice that where your body is really heavy and if you find it really difficult to get out of bed in the morning, right? Those are signs to watch out for. And also if this person is starting to use alcohol or other substances like marijuana or any other drugs, or even sleeping pills, prescription medication, if they're starting to use it more than they should or abuse it, then it's another very important warning sign. And of course, finally, if they're talking about ideas around self-harm and suicide, right? If they're saying things like, I've had enough, I want to go, I am trapped, I've had enough, I'm fed up, so
those are things like, I'm not good enough, this is never going to work out,
it's not worth it, what's the point? So something I said that my friend got their alarm bells ringing was, I said in the past week, something I said was, I want to go, right? And my friend continuously kept asking me, where do you want to go? Right? I wasn't able to answer that clearly. So that's when they saying my experience. So like that, you'll hear friends saying different things that you need to pick up on, right?
Yeah.
And that will really help you approach. Now, when you approach a friend, again, we might have these various attitudes and barriers that we place. Will they misunderstand? Will it be too intrusive? Am I invading their space? But what I would say is, at those times, be compassionate, be kind, but approach this person, right? Say, for example, if I'm talking to Sharon, I might say, Sharon, in the past 2 days, I've noticed that you've not been yourself. Is there something going on? Or are you okay? So those are some conversation starters that you can use. Or if I say, Shanuki, I've noticed that you're looking really down these days. Is everything okay? Can I help in any way, right? So those are conversation starters, because then people feel safe to open up. And mainly, Shanuki, we tell a lot of people to talk. We say, reach out, talk to someone, talk about your problems. But on the other hand, we also need people to listen. And we need people to listen without judging, right?
Yeah.
We need people to listen compassionately. So that is also something our society and community needs to work on, not just talking, but also listening to each other.
There's also actually,
so
just to take from that, I'll just go into another question that is connected. If you feel awkward to talk to someone, is there a way you can get help anonymously? I think from what I know, okay, if you don't want to, See, it's perfectly natural, and I know that more than anyone else, to not want to talk to people because you fear vulnerability, you fear criticism, or you just don't want people to know because you have this face that you want the world to see, and you don't want them to see that you can be powerless too. I think online you get quite a few good legitimate chat forums where they don't necessarily need to know who you are. I think you have an app called Wobot, right?
Yeah,
WOEBOT.
Yeah.
Wobot is a good way. Sharon, would you know any ways of, or Natalie, where you have anonymity in talking to people?
Yeah, before I answer that, could I just add to what Devendra said, if you don't mind?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like as Devendra was saying, like I can relate to a lot of that. For example, a majority of this, when this was going on, I ate maybe like one meal a day. I slept all the time so that I wouldn't have to deal with anything related to university, work, Instagram, LinkedIn, whatever, social media in general. I used to just sleep. So that I could just be like, so then it wouldn't be causing any anxiousness or overthinking or I can't take this anymore thoughts. So I would purposely just force myself to sleep as much as I possibly can or close my eyes. And when it comes to friends reaching out, like I remember one of my friends reached out like 2 weeks ago, and he just checked up on me. He was just like, hey man, how are you? And sometimes we don't realize how strong a message like how are you can be, or like how you can place that message, like you said, Niventa, like how you can ask a question from someone. You have no idea the power behind that message of how it will make you feel. And personally speaking, it helps me so much. And when he identified that I was having one meal a day, both because I did not have appetite, plus I've been struggling financially as well, he started ordering like big Sri Lankan like bath packets that would like last me like 4 to 5 days, and I've now increased to 2 meals a day. Just because like I'm happy that someone cares about me. More than like no appetite, I'm just like someone actually wants me to eat. Someone actually wants me to like survive and make it through this. And that feeling of not being alone and that feeling of just having someone there watching out for you feels good. And I just wanted to stress like that messaging is so important. And when it comes to anonymity, there are like a bunch of things you can possibly do. Obviously reaching out for help, like you're automatically anonymous, but if you know a friend that's going through something. So for example, when I was going through these thoughts and it came to a relapse last week, I had to tell my boss right now, who I'm just doing like some unpaid work for. I was just like, he's been I never ever use my mental health as an excuse when it comes to university work or work in general. It's something I live by. But like at that point, I had some deadlines and I had to tell him, because I know him personally. I was just like, I'm always contemplating of taking my life, and this has been happening all throughout last week. And these thoughts are not helping me do the work. And what he did was I found out later on, obviously, but he contacted my university and basically said, and he tried to be anonymous, but they obviously asked his name for their information, but they wouldn't tell me. They just, the therapist from my university instantly contacted me, got me in touch with someone, spoke to me and just made sure I was okay and stuff like that. So if you do have those resources, but there are like group chats that you can join that you can choose to be anonymous, and just listen to what people are saying or just talk to people. I haven't heard of Wobot, which is awesome as well. There's also Headspace, that is a beautiful space that you can go and reach out to people, and they have apps as well for like meditation and stuff like that. So I just wanted to add to that. I hope that brings some value.
Also locally, sure. Please.
Yeah, I need to add to that as well, because I feel like sometimes there's a lot of pressure on people who are going through such things to think positively, to snap out of it. Yeah, it's like they pressure you so much to work it out on your own. It's like you're responsible. I do understand that we have the power to kind of control ourselves and control our mind, but I feel like there's so much responsibility, and that like there's so much expectance from people where they are expecting you to work through it, snap out of it, or do whatever that helps you come out with. But one thing that people need to understand is mental health conditions, they're all psychological, they're biological, but they're also social. So you need to understand that as a society that we don't have that practice where whether we show signs or not, caring for each other, kind of, being aware of each other's environments, stories.
Yeah.
We don't practice such thing as much as we should. So it's like we're waiting for a situation to kind of talk to someone. Why wait for a situation? Why wait for someone to kind of suffer through it to ask how they are? Why can't we do it? I know we're all going through our own battles. Sometimes we tend to forget to ask someone how they're doing, and it's understood. But I think we need to practice kindness on a daily basis to kind of be aware of, at least start with your family. I know a lot of families where, sometimes when the truth is inconvenient for you, even if you care for someone, the truth gets really inconvenient. You don't want to be a part of that mess. So you just expect that person to kind of work through it. So I think at least starting with your family or with your closest friend, you kind of need to be aware of the environment and, be aware of their stories, validate their stories. I think that can make all the change in the world for someone who's going through it. So I just needed to add into that, because sometimes we wait for signs, but sometimes I wonder, why do we wait for it rather than we try to prevent it?
We also have national mental health services. We also have helplines that you can call, and you can choose to be anonymous unless it's really serious and they need to know who you are to sort of help you out. So you have 1926 and 1333, right, Nivendra?
Yeah, so 1926 is the National Mental Health Line. It's available 24 hours. 1333 or 1333 is also available 24 hours in all 3 languages. And it's toll free, which means your phone doesn't get charged. Even if you don't have credit on your phone, you can still call them. And then Sumitra has a line that's 0112 696666, 0112 696666. So that's 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. every day. You can call them. And then there's also Shanti Margam, which has another line, 0717 639898. So that's from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day. So yeah, those are the lines. Again, you can remain anonymous. You don't have to give your details, but those are services that you can use. And then of course there are psychologists, counselors, psychiatrists available also to consult if you need to at this time.
Yeah. Okay, going into, because we've kind of run out of time, but I want to finish answering the remaining questions if you don't mind. We have a few. One is, we all know that mental well-being is not a constant state. It's always changing. My question is, how can we manage the stress and workload after reopening the country? Because now that we get comfortable just as we start adapting and adjusting to lockdown, when we have to go out blinking into the world again, how do we manage that? I think that's stress and workload, right?
Sharon, go for it, right? Okay, never mind. Okay, slowly. Everyone's trying to run a rat race, right? Everyone's trying to compare themselves to other people and try to catch up as fast as they can. I understand that different corporates, different settings, different environments, there are different complications that we need to adapt to. But slowly, because as soon as you, like for me, personally speaking, my biggest feeling of feeling trapped is I was so used to a whole routine, and then COVID-19 came and slapped me across the face and be like, think again, this is your new routine, and it's still taking me time to adjust to it, but I'm doing it slowly. I'm not running at a pace that everyone else is. Like I'm good on people for being productive, learning new things and all that stuff. I love it. But for me, like I'm just slowly trying to still adapt to the situation. And like Nivendra, I just like literally took singing lessons like yesterday as well, which is awesome, which made me feel nice about myself.
In my case, I have to learn to slow down because I've never been taking anything slowly. And now the fact that I have to do things slowly is like really ripping me off. Yeah.
Absolutely, it's ripping me off as well because I'm just like, geez.
I think
sometimes, but yeah, Nivendra, go for it, man.
It takes a crisis to remind us to slow down and to remind us to invest in what's important in our lives. Sometimes we have let go of so many things that now might be the chance to pick up on again, right?
Yeah, I think, but this question was when we go back into the workload.
Yeah. So when we go back, what I would say is set yourself goals, right? And make sure those goals are realistic, not unrealistic goals where, whoa, I'm going to do all of this in a week after curfew lifts. No, that's not what it is, but to have small chunks of what you want to do, right? But also to make sure that you don't suddenly get in full on into this drive mode that we talked about, but have a balance so that you also have time to rest, you have time to do other things that you like to do, and to do whatever you have to do in terms of work or in terms of education or whatever it might be. So take things slow. Let's not rush into this world of non-curfew when it starts, because we have a lot to get used to, and the normal that we knew is, I'm sorry, but it's not going to be there when we get back into the outside world. So we have to rethink our lives. We have to prioritize again. We have to find new meanings maybe to what we've been doing, because things have really changed so rapidly, right? But I think at the core of it, Shanuki, this whole conversation has been around kindness and compassion. And I think to just be that for yourself, to be compassionate towards yourself, give yourself that, cut yourself some slack, to know that you don't have to be gung-ho right after this finishes, right? To give yourself compassion, because you're all human and we all we take time to adapt to new situations. So not my advice, but my thoughts would be to let yourself gradually sink into what you're doing. And as much as we talk about bouncing back, when we talk about resilience, we can also bounce forward, right? We can also bounce forward as human beings. So bounce forward requires the collective support of our community as well. So as much as we talk about self-care, Shanuki, we also have to talk about community care, because self-care can't exist if there is no community care, right? So the community needs to bounce forward together, which means we also have to take people along with us while we get used to the world outside again.
Okay. And then there was a question, which is the other side of the one that I had just asked you. What can you tell yourself, knowing that there is a possibility of a second wave of the pandemic? So I'm gonna take a shot at that. And I'm like, you guys, you're welcome to interject and say whatever. One is the fact that I would say, if my personal viewpoint of this, and this doesn't have to be everybody else's, if there is a second wave of the pandemic, then I would say I am better prepared to deal, because I've gone through the first wave. So we know sort of roughly what that is going to do to our lives. We have a better sort of ability to game plan for it. The zombie apocalypse is coming. We know what we need to, prepare for. So I think you can look at it with that kind of proactiveness. I wouldn't call it positivity, but proactiveness, to sort of have that game plan for how to deal. And that said, in the history of time, the world has gone through many, many, many pandemics. We may not have been alive for most of them, but the world has gone through it, and the world has always survived it. We have this tendency to go into that survival mode and adapt. And I'm sure that, if we can focus on the fact that this too shall pass at some point, that we can figure out how to deal with it right now. Anyone wants to add to that?
I just very briefly want to say, it's again thinking about what you can and can't control. If there's a second pandemic, it's not something you can control, but what you can control is being safe, looking after yourself, looking after people around you, and being proactive to prepare. So preparedness is something that helps to be resilient in times of crisis. Preparedness, to be prepared.
Yeah. Okay, final question is in regards to what Nivendra said about fight, flight, and freeze. How can you tell the difference between the freeze response and just being depressed?
Okay, I think that's a really good question. In the freeze response, you wouldn't find yourself being there for too long, right? Because you tend to, once that threat is no longer there, you tend to usually bounce back into your normal state of functioning. But with depression, what we look for really is a period of time where you're experiencing these symptoms, right? So for example, low mood, problems with sleep, problems with appetite, if they're happening for a week, 2, 3, 4, then we know that it is most likely depression or another mental health problem. So that's where the difference lies. Where stress usually it ups, you get it, but then it also goes down. But with depression, if you're having same symptoms, if you're experiencing the same thing continuously for a period of time, which is more than usual, that's when you need to start thinking about reaching out for help.
Yeah. Okay. One last question, which I think this is an important one that I personally have asked you, Nivendra, for quite a number of times, and I'm sure that Sharon also being there for everyone has possibly encountered this. How do you strike a balance between being there for someone and being in way over your head and becoming a crutch for that someone? Please, could you give us some mechanisms for being supportive but not being overwhelmed, especially if the sufferer does not want to seek professional help but wants you to constantly be there for them?
You want me to go first, Nivendra?
Go for it.
Okay, so we spoke about acceptance, we spoke about self-awareness, we spoke about all of those things. Like for me, like you can be there for a person to a certain extent, but the biggest A in all of those things, acceptance and awareness, there's action. If that person isn't actively taking measures towards taking care of themselves, like they can go for 100 million therapy sessions or speak to a person 100 million times, but they may not be recovering from it. They might just make it a habit to talk to someone, but they're not taking action towards their self-care. So like to answer your question for that as well, like, yes, I get messages all the time from people who are going through things. And I think where I draw the line, and Nivendra and I spoke about this before as well, where I draw the line is I tell them, this is where I cannot help you. This is where you need to reach out to someone who's professional. I can only tell you what I know from my experiences, but you need to reach out to someone who's professional who can help you take the action that you need. Because clearly, what you're trying from what I've told you hasn't helped you take that next step towards recovery. Hasn't helped you take that next step towards healing. So that's where I say, look, I love you. You are going to make it through this, but I really, really think that you need professional help so that you can take that next step forward and take action towards it. So I think those are my 3 A's, like acceptance, awareness, acceptance, and then action. So yeah, if that, what do you think, Nivendra?
Yeah, I think it's really important to draw that line. A lot of us sometimes find it difficult to do because we also belong to a very collectivist kind of a society in Sri Lanka, right? Where we are always in the business of other people, right? But it's important to be able to have your boundaries set. Something I think a lot of us struggle with, myself included, but it's a work in progress where you learn where you end and where they begin, right? Where you end and where they begin. And you can be supportive, you can listen, you can maybe provide options, maybe not advice, but options, right? And you can, like Sharon said, tell them certain ideas that might have worked for you or you found it useful. But I think we always, in this space of mental health, we always have to encourage people to seek help, right? Sometimes, you don't have to have a mental illness to seek help, but sometimes therapy or lifting up the phone and calling a helpline can just be to understand yourself better or to work on other things that might not involve mental illness, right? So this idea that you have to have a mental illness to seek help is something we have to get out also of these myths and misconceptions that exist, because that prevents other people who might not identify with having a mental health problem from seeking help for other things. So I think as a friend or a colleague or someone who's supporting another person, it's important to know that you're a peer. You're there to support by listening, by providing options, by providing information, but you're not their therapist, you're not their doctor, right? It's just like this, right, Shanuki, when you go if you're on a road and you see an accident, right? If you're trained in first aid, you would give first aid. So your basic first aid would be to stop the bleeding, make sure, everything is safe until the ambulance arrives. But you're not going to perform surgery on the road. That is not what you're going to do. So it's the same concept here. You're not going to perform therapy just because you're helping someone by being a friend. So you need to know the distinction.
Also, I think.
Also, I also need to add something as well.
Yes, Natalia, please.
Yeah. So I heard Nivendra speak about boundary lines, I think somewhere around last year. Up until then, I didn't know about such thing. I didn't want to accept it. But I remember very vividly when Nivendra said it, it hit me real hard because I was going through a lot on my own at that time. And I remember last August when I had a really bad relapse. And I remember I held I'm sorry, this might trigger people, but I had a laptop cable in my hand and I was contemplating whether I'm going to kill myself or whether I'm going to kill my husband. And then it came to a point where I couldn't control myself. And I remember telling my husband to take me to Nivendra, somehow get in touch with Nivendra. And I don't remember much about that day when I met Nivendra, but something that really hit my head was when he said, you need to start drawing your boundary lines. And I have to tell you that has helped me immensely. It works wonders. You don't want to accept it. You think that things are going to go really bad. You think that, the relationship is going to be damaged. You think that you're not going to be able to look at that person again in the same way again. But truth be told, once I started listening to that advice, I think it's so solid that your relationship becomes better. That something I stress on is that it helps you breathe comfortably in that relationship. Before it was so toxic. I felt so trapped. I felt like a lot of bad things were happening to me because of the way I handled relationships. But I think ever since Nivendra told me those golden words about boundary lines, I think it has really changed my life immensely. I think that's something a lot of people need to kind of take up on as well, because I was under the impression that it's going to damage my relationship with my family and my friends. But ever since I took that step, I think that has changed a lot. So for people who are listening in, if they're going through something and they feel like, wherever they are, the environment or the people they are around, if they feel if it's too toxic, I think number one, what they need to do is draw the boundary lines. And that will help you immensely kind of understand how you've been handling relationships yourself and how others have been treating you as well. And it gives both parties to kind of understand each other.
It's all right actually to communicate. This is something I'm also learning to do, is that when you feel like you're becoming a crutch and you feel obligated to be there for someone because you feel emotionally blackmailed in some way, that you'll be letting them down if you don't if you're not there. But then at the same time, this is draining you, and this is obviously causing you mental wellness issues as well. It's all right to communicate, saying, look, I have done whatever I can and I'm here for you, but I can't sort of be here all the time. And it's important that, you start to trust someone else or whatever. You can have those conversations, frame it however you want, but you can clearly state that you're not going to be able to sort of, and end of the day, it helps them as well to start taking accountability for themselves and start, a little bit more self-sufficiency rather than, again, creating this dependency. That is also a form of help you are providing them.
And just really to add like a small thing to that, I was the guy who was using my two best friends as the crutch. I'm not Mother Mary here. Like, I used to do it all the time. 2018, I remember like it was yesterday, 2018 December, I used to call them every single night, talk about the same thing every single day, which is important. You need to be heard when you're going through these things. But the thing is, I wasn't taking any action towards self-healing and getting better. I was just talking to my friends, getting it all out, and then going about my day. And then my two best friends basically stopped me and said, Sharon, we will listen to you for the rest of your life, as annoying as you are sometimes, but I'm telling you, you need professional help. And because they told me that, I went and got professional help, and I haven't looked back since. So like, you just need to draw the line and know how much you can take. And also, because you love your friend or your girlfriend or your wife or your husband, whatever it is, you are actually loving them even more by suggesting that they go and reach out for more help.
Yeah, 100%, of course. Yeah.
There is a last question again, a third last question. And this is about children actually. There has been a big rush to do online lessons for kids. It is acceptable for older kids who are preparing for exams, but do we really need to stress kids between the ages of 3 to 8? It's been 2 months. how much, I don't know. I'm not a child psychologist here, and I'm not a mother, so I'm not qualified to answer this.
Well, again, I'm not a child psychologist either, but being a psychologist, I would say you don't have to stress kids out at that age. Let them have fun, hug them, do whatever you do as parents, but please, you don't have to push them with online lessons at that age. Let them have this time where they also enjoy themselves. And
I think a lot of parents might be hiding behind the online lessons also because it keeps the kids occupied.
I mean,
little bit of structure is not a bad thing, but
structure is okay, but let's not pressurize them and push them at this time. Give them space to be kids, to play, because this is also a time where kids can really be kids and have that time where they really bond with their parents, their siblings, you know. So it doesn't have to be this regimental kind of a thing, military type of thing you need to go on with at home. You can have a balanced life for kids where they play, they enjoy themselves, but they also can do a little bit of work. You know, so it all depends on how you.
It's interesting that you said that, because I'm someone who's old enough to remember Sri Lanka having curfews before, right? I lived through an era where we did have extended curfew periods. So this is nothing new to me. But I do remember that as a child, those are some of the best memories I have. And I'm sure that it was like super stressful for my parents because they were adulting, but I was not. And that is the time of my life that I remember having my father at home. That was the time I remember, you know, building and flying a kite in my garden. And it was actually like this magical holiday period. So sometimes, you know, your kids can be actually benefiting and actually enriched from this family time you're able to provide them. Of course, it is responsible on you also to provide that experience for them. But yeah, I don't know. I can't remember the homework I had to do. So yeah, okay, we're gonna stop here because I think we've run over time. We've actually run 22 minutes over time. Thank you so much to the panel, Nivendra, Sharon, Natali. Great insights, and thank you for opening up and sharing yourselves. And thank you to Chokolaate once again and everybody out there. We hope this session was helpful. And if there are other questions, I'm sure you can maybe direct them to Chokolaate. And if the magazine feels that it is in our expertise to answer them, maybe we can reach out to you privately and have them answered. It's over and out from us. Is there anyone from the Chokolaate magazine who wants to sign out? Parami?
Yes, hi. Thank you guys so much. This was a really nice discussion. It was so informative, and I think everyone really took something from this. So thank you, Shanuki, Sharan, Natali, Nivendra, for joining us today. It was amazing to have you guys, and we're really grateful. And also thank you to everyone who joined us today to participate in this discussion, have a listen, learn something. We'll be continuing this series on different topics though. So we'll be having webinars every week. If you want, you can just stay tuned to our Instagram and Facebook pages. We'll be updating all the info there. So once again, I would like to thank our exclusive partner UCL. And apparently we had an audio issue earlier in the video, so I'm just going to play that again. But we can wrap up now. So thank you everyone once again for joining us. And
thank you guys.
See you.
Thank you so much.
Bye guys.
Yeah, thank you so much. Bye. And all you beautiful, sexy people, it's okay not to be okay. Rock it.
Yeah. Rock the not okay.
Bye. See you guys.
Bye guys. Take care.
See you. Bye.